I want to pivot now to a new Jeopardy category, fights with friends, because that's another area of the Trump administration that we haven't really talked about yet. And we'll get to the tariff aspect of this, which is looming. But first, Greenland. Mark?
You look at me.
Yeah, I look at you because you're the only person I know who's ever been to Greenland. And you're just back from Greenland and from the capital of Nuuk. If you can give us your sense of how seriously in Greenland are they taking Trump's desire to absorb Greenland into the United States. This is in that category also, not just fights with friends, but in the category of completely extracurricular activities on the part of the Trump administration that nevertheless create unneeded anxiety when there's so much other going on. But talk about your experience there.
Yeah, first of all, my boss sent me to Greenland in January. Which,
your boss must really not like you.
You know, he must. I've done something wrong at some point. But I figured I'd work in the Atlantic's nuke bureau for a few days. And got snowed out.
It is, by the way, in the Atlantic.
It is. We're not called the Pacific, right?
Right.
Anyway, I went to Nuuk. This is obviously kind of a goofy little story because it involves a place that most people have never been to, present company excluded. And, it kind of feels peripheral at this moment. But look, if you live there, it's the only issue in town. If you live in Denmark, it is like the #1 geopolitical issue in that country, in many NATO countries. I mean, the fact is, Donald Trump had this conversation. He wants to buy, to give a little background, he wants to buy Greenland from Denmark. Right. Had a conversation apparently about a week and a half ago with the Prime Minister of Denmark. Did not go well at all. Right. He has not ruled out military intervention, some kind of economic intervention. I mean, it's kind of...
And noting, by the way, that Denmark is a member of NATO.
Correct.
So Denmark, if the... Right. God forbid that it ever came into some kind of...
We would have to come to Denmark.
We would have to come to Denmark's aid in the way that Denmark came to our aid after 9/11.
I mean, to give you a little window into this, though, I watched President Trump's inaugural address with a group of parliament members and Politico types in the capital of Nuuk. And they were all kind of, is he going to mention us? We're going to get a line, we're going to get 2 lines or something like that. And then when it was clear where the speech was going and how aggressive it was and how, one woman I was sitting with said, that's very menacing. I don't want him to mention us now. They sort of at the end, like one of them said, well, can you feel like we've, a sigh of relief in here?
Because he mentioned Panama.
He mentioned Panama. Everyone think, okay, we're next. Gulf of America, we're next. And usually that segues to Canada. Often it goes to Greenland. Never got that far. But look, I mean, it's a nervous, again, on one hand, it's a goofy story. On the other hand, it's deathly serious with a very far-reaching direction.
Based on your reporting, do you think the Trump administration is serious about trying to find a way to own Greenland?
I think, look, right now, I mean, traditionally, it belongs to Denmark. If they want to negotiate some kind of sale or some kind of trade or something, I mean, that's been done in history before. That could happen. But as far as any kind of force, again, using military, using economic strength, that hasn't happened. But, again, no one really knows what they're dealing with here.
This is classic Trump, by the way. So everybody took it as a joke, right, when this first came up in, I think, your paper, first reported back in 2019. Yeah. And when we went back and looked at it for our book, Susan Glasser, my wife and I, we discovered it wasn't a joke. It's actually something he had been bringing up for more than 18 months before it became public because his friend Ron Lauder put it in his head that this would be a great idea. And he would bring it up at cabinet meeting after cabinet
meeting.
Ron
Lauder, the
billionaire,
Lauder.
Exactly, yes.
What?
The billionaire pal of his, just it's randomly a thought that Lauder had. Now, Lauder's no longer on the inside. It stuck with Trump. We asked Trump during an interview we did for the book, why Greenland? And he said, I looked at the map. It looked like a great thing. I mean, he has this real estate view.
It's true. It looks like a great thing.
Well, not only that, I mean, there is actually a geopolitical argument for wanting Greenland. I mean, like the climate
not for necessarily
change.
Taking it over.
I mean, the trade paths that the melting ice is creating. There's all kinds of really valuable minerals, possible oil deposits. I mean,
another president would negotiate maybe more military presence there, or leasing more territory for a base or what have you.
I mean, the United States military can get what it wants out of Greenland without owning Greenland. Is that fair?
I don't know.
Basing.
They could get basing, absolutely.
I mean, basing issues and other issues,
transiting,
overflight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no need to invade. There are all sorts of options.
It's amazing that we're spending this much time. I bet Greenland has not been discussed this much on Washington.
I could talk about it forever.
Apparently, yes.
I
know. But this goes to your theory, by the way, that this is a flood the zone issue. It's like, well, they're not talking about anything that I'm doing for the last 2 hours, so I'm going to raise the question of Greenland again, and then everybody jumps because he is the president. So what the president says is axiomatically important.
Yeah.
And it matters.
But it's also a reminder, right, of the way that policy and ideas get made in Trump world. Whoever
Yes.
talked to him last, proximity is power.
Random.
And then you start looking at who's around him. Elon Musk, okay, now you're offering potential government buyouts for federal employees. Where did we see that? Oh yeah, at X, when Elon
Right.
Musk had last taken over.
Right.
There's lots of parallels.
Stay on this dealing with friends question. The tariffs. Why now? What's going to happen?
In theory, they could be coming as soon as this weekend or even as soon as Saturday. And the plan at this point is to leverage a 10% tariff against China, citing fentanyl flow and trafficking into the U.S. And then the other idea is to put a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico. The Canadians, of course, the Mexican government, all trying to make entreaties to the administration. Trump said something to the effect today of it's a done deal, nothing can be said, but of course nothing can be said until something can be said, and then we see the art of the deal once again in play. But this could have, and likely will have if they go forward with it, true economic impacts on Americans, including people in places like Michigan, who has some of the highest percentage of imports in this country. Many Michigan lawmakers have already been calling me and other reporters, just warning about how bad this could be on the Michigan economy and then also for Americans there. And I think that's really one of the places where you could see the rubber meet the road for Trump voters that might have voted for this theory of getting tough on the world stage and then seeing the way that it hits their pocketbooks. Price of eggs, by the way, is still not down.
Yeah.
And this could be a moment where maybe we see a change, but also NBC News has done interviews with Trump supporters who say, I know he's trying to bring prices down. It's hard, though. So they're willing to let him off the hook as long as it looks like he's trying.
But if you thought 9% inflation was tough in 1 year during the Biden administration, imagine 25% higher cost consumer items and so forth.
Right. Do we get eggs from Canada?
We're not getting eggs from anywhere right now.
We're not getting eggs from anywhere. In the couple minutes that we have left, I want to talk about something very serious, which is the FBI. Nancy, we're hearing all kinds of reports over the last day that they're looking for people inside the FBI who were involved in any kind of Trump-related investigation. And Kash Patel, who is the nominee to run the FBI, has clearly talked about retribution in the past. What do you think is coming down the road here?
Well, what they're saying is anyone who is affiliated, which we're talking about hundreds of people for things like looking at Trump or January 6th investigation, now need to be looked at about whether they have a future in the FBI. And so we're starting this sort of culture of investigation within the organization. And remember, these are people who didn't volunteer or ask or seek these jobs out like a military deployment. They were assigned the jobs and they did those jobs. And on the week that we heard from Kash Patel, in which he made it very clear, despite his best efforts to calm the fears of some senators, that there will be a retribution potentially within the FBI for investigations that go against what the administration wants. It has the chilling effect, really, when you hear about people who could be pushed out of their jobs, not for doing something political, but for doing something that was supposed to be strictly not political, carrying out their jobs.
Peter, is this retribution, potentially retribution, or is this just a way of making sure that everyone gets the message, don't look into the Trump family, don't look into Trump's activities?
That certainly will not be happening in the next 4 years, for sure. Look, Kash Patel has said, and he's reflecting Trump's view, that the FBI is a corrupt, politicized swamp monster of an agency, and it deserved to be essentially broken down and rebuilt from scratch. So their argument will be, we're getting rid of the politicized people in order to restore its trust and integrity. Everybody else would look at that, as we just said, Nancy has said, as targeting people who just did their job. They're not political. They were just assigned to do it. And now the message is very clear. You know what the consequences are if you cross Donald Trump or his people. There's no protection there for you, at least at the moment.
Mark, last 30 seconds. What's the most surprising thing that's happened this week to you?
I would say the most surprising, well, look, it's just, I do think that, yes, this is sort of the random, haphazard approach that we thought, but this doesn't feel random and haphazard. This actually feels more organized. It feels more targeted. Yes, there is a shock and awe. Yes, there is a, one thing after another effect as there was before. There does feel like more of a method to the madness than there was last time.
Oh, we'll watch next week from our bureau in Greenland. Mark,
I'll be there.
Yeah. You should get the summer. You try to get the summer shift.
There will be direct flights from Newark to
I have no doubt. But unfortunately, we need to leave it there for now.